Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we have Mindy Regan from MyNHD. The name of the class is Understanding Your NHD Report, which we all need to know, right? So,
Yeah,
hello, Mindy. Welcome.
thank you. Thank you, Kim. It's always good to see you and everybody. I'm Mindy with MyNHD, and NHD stands for Natural Hazard Disclosures. It is a very interesting industry because it's the only part of real estate in the transaction that is not regulated. Well, what does that mean? It means that per Civil Code 1103.7, the fiduciary duty of the listing agent that is representing the seller is that they provide this report within 7 days of the accepted offer to the buyer. And that's because the buyer has 3 days from the day they receive this report to either move forward on the transaction or to pull out of it due to material fact. Material fact is what affects the desirability and the value of the house. And that's why this report was created and mandatory. It's on all transactions in the whole state. Nothing is exempt. It's mandatory on mobile homes, condos, townhomes, single family homes, land only. I get a lot of questions. I'm buying a home in Venice and I'm spending $900,000 and I'm going to tear it down. I don't need an NHD, right? No, you do, because it's about the land. It's not the dwelling that's sitting on top of it. So nothing is exempt. And it is also the fiduciary duty of the buyer's agent to choose for their buyer which NHD provider they'd like. And the reason that's so important, and a lot of agents don't realize that they really need to choose, is because if you don't write in your RPA under the section of NHD who you'd like, then by law, you have to accept whatever the listing agent wants to give you. Now with title, escrow, home warranty, those are all regulated services, but NHD is not. So not all the reports are created equal. They're not all the same. The only part that is the same is the statutory form that I'm going to show you from CAR when I pull up my sample report. It is the fire, flood, earthquake, liquefaction, landslide. Are you in any kind of seismic activity? That's it. Those 6 questions are the only mandatory part of this report. So not all companies provide the local disclosures, for example. And the reason that is so crucial is that these reports are written with the state map, county map, and city map. If the report does not include the local city map, then what happens is it may not be accurate. It is the local report that will always supersede state and county. Why? Because in the city of Calabasas, in the city of Beverly Hills, in the city of Santa Monica, Hollywood, all of these local areas have more money than state and county. Makes sense, right? So those reports are updated more frequently. Therefore, they're more reliable, meaning that's the one that always will supersede state and county. So the reports should always include all the local disclosures as well. And MyNHD has been in business for, since 1998. Eric Spitz, our owner, started it with LGS and LGS Retrofit. I'm sure everybody's heard of them. He sold it to First American Title in 2005, had a 5-year do not compete clause, and in 2010 opened MyNHD. And we've been in partnership with CAR ever since. We are on the top spot of your zip forms. So when you're filling out your RPA buyer's agents, don't forget that it's easy to hover over with your mouse and click on MyNHD. If you're not already using us, I hope you will choose us now. And it's because we've been endorsed and approved by them, by CAR, and it's because of our track record. Since 1998, we have never had any issues on our reports. None, no lawsuits. It's phenomenal. So I'm here to keep you safe and protected. Risk management in real estate is everything. The longevity of our company and the quality of our report and the accuracy is what separates us from from all of our competition. And I'm going to show you now a sample report on MyNHD.com. Anybody can pull this up. If there are any questions right now, you can let me know. And also, I'm very happy to answer questions throughout my presentation. So don't be shy. Okay, let me pull up my website.
Mindy, do you think that you have the Facebook on somewhere else on your computer? Because I hear a little bit of a background noise.
Oh,
or someone else nearby you on the Facebook? No? Okay.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hold on, I just realized. I just drew a blank on how to make my screen smaller. Oh wait, I gotta go to share it, never mind. Silly. Sorry, I gotta bring thing. Okay, can you see it?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Okay, excellent. So, here's our website. And I won't go through every single tab, but I always like to point out that if you want to be in control of your transaction, you can just sign up and be to our website. So when you get your listing, don't wait for escrow to open. Order it when you get your listing. And it's because right now, especially, people are really moving fast, aren't they? The houses are selling quickly. And a lot of people are very concerned. Is this in a high fire zone? Can I get fire insurance on my new home? Is it in a flood zone? So there are a lot of savvy buyers out there. Don't wait to go into escrow to get the report, because what if the new buyer says, after they've done their virtual tour, they want to write an offer? I don't want to give you a deposit till I know if I'm in a flood zone or a fire zone. If you already have the NHD report, you can show them. It's fabulous. So you go into sign up, you provide us with your name, email, create a password. And each time you want to place an order, all you do is go in to sign in. You sign in, same thing, name, password, get linked into the system just like here. And then you fill out the APN number along with your address. We always request 2 forms of identification on the property because we want to ensure that when we're pulling these maps, and we have a phenomenal engineering system, we have our own engineers, we own our own data, which is really important in this industry. A lot of other people don't own their own data. And so when we pull those reports from the maps, we want to make sure everything is accurate. So that's why we ask for 2 forms of ID. Once you place the order, it'll come to you in about 15 minutes, really quickly. If there are any glitches, like sometimes the APN number is wrong, or maybe there's some information that we're given that's not accurate, we'll research it to make sure before we create the report that everything we have is perfect. So let's look at our pricing. We are one of the least expensive NHD providers at $74.95. That is complete and accurate with insurance. There are some people out there that are cheaper, but do they have mellow roofs, 1915 Bond Act, taxes, and most important, E&O insurance. MyNHD has $10 million of E&O that protects everybody in the transaction. All of you, listing agent, buyer's agent, buyer, seller, transaction coordinator if you use one, and escrow. So a lot of times when the buyer is suing, they sue everybody. We protect all of you. So you don't have to do anything. You buy the report, we give you the protection, and God forbid there's an issue, we do it all. Some companies have in their terms and conditions, well, we're responsible for no errors in the report. How can you buy something and then not stand behind it? It's called not regulated. What if there's a company, and there is, that says, we give you $20 million of E&O, but then if there's a problem, we only pay out $100,000. There's another company that says if there's a problem with the report and there's any kind of lawsuit, you have to go to where we are based here in Texas, for example, not in the state of California. So we give you protection here in the state, and you do nothing if there's a problem. I also want to point out $94.95 is if it's got environmental added. And the environmental report, which I'll show you today as well, is the details of what's going on underneath the property. Man-made chemical, oil wells, gas wells, etc. So for $20, you have that additional protection. This is for 1 to 4 units. And then the commercial report, 5 or more, is $89.95, and add environmental, $109.95. For those of you who do a lot of leases, I know the West Side is really intense with a lot of leases, and they're high price leases, right? The flood report is mandatory on all leases. What that means is you need to let the person leasing the space know, is this a flood zone or not? And the purpose of this is to allow that renter to get insurance. It's just really that simple. They don't have to, but if they don't know if they're in a flood zone, they may not even know they need insurance if they would like. And a lot of people lost all of their personal items in one of the major floods. So this has now been a law for the last 2 years. So we provide that for $19.95. Let's also go to the resource tab. The resource tab I love because not only does it have the booklets of the earthquake residential in English and Spanish, commercial. These are the signature forms in commercial and residential, because sometimes leases need that, and you don't need to buy the whole report just to get that. So we want to give it to you for just, availability right here on this page. Definitions of FEMA, because FEMA decides are you in or out of a flood zone. So you're not the expert, we are. So we want to give you and your clients the opportunity to read what are all the flood zone determinations. So that's that. And the Radon Gas Booklet is really cool because it has maps. And I love to show this because a lot of people are in California that didn't even realize radon gas is everywhere. And if they've moved from another state here and they say, oh, radon gas, I'm in zone 2, is that okay? Show them this link. It's fabulous because you can't do anything about it. It's a natural element of the earth. It's colorless, it's odorless, it's radioactive. So you can't take it out of rocks and soil and where it is in your home. So let's look at the map in the state of California. Notice that Northern California, Southern California are all yellow. That is the lowest potential zone of radon gas. The highest zone is red, and it's only in Santa Barbara. So isn't it interesting that it appears the desirability and the values of the homes there in Santa Barbara have not really been affected by radon gas, right? The other place that I want to point out is, of course, where we live in Southern California is majority orange, the moderate zone. So let's say you have somebody coming here from East Coast like me, or Midwest, or wherever they're from, and they don't think they ever had radon gas.
Mindy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that buzzing is back. Do you think it could be your headpiece?
I don't know. Can you hear me better now?
No, it's still there. I mean, I can hear you fine. It's just this a funny ringing in the background, but that's okay. That it wasn't that. Sorry.
I don't know what it is.
It sounds like the Zoom might be open again on your laptop in 2 places,
Yeah, I don't.
But you don't.
It's
no,
not.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm not techie to figure it out either.
That's okay.
So sorry. Okay, so any questions on any of that right now? Anybody?
No.
Okay, so let's go to the sample report, and you can just see that you can open up residential and environmental, and you can also look at our commercial reports. So I would recommend at your leisure, please feel free to go back into the report, look it over, open all the blue links, all the maps I'm going to show you, except for Megan's Law. When I get there, I'll remind you, you never want to open the sex offender laws website, because if you do, as a real estate agent in the state of California, by law, you have to disclose to anyone who wants to make an offer where all those bad guys are. So don't ever look at that site. Just guide them to that. This is the invoice. It has the address, APN number, who ordered the report, and escrow. If when you get the report and you're only getting it for your listing, escrow's not open, don't worry. When it opens, just let us know where it is. Who's the company, your officer, their contact information. We send them this report. That way they have the invoice. When it closes, they rip off the bottom and they send us a check. If for any reason it does not close, we do not care why. You don't pay for the report. So there's no downside to ever getting it up front. This is the signature page that CAR, California Association of Realtors, created in 1998. They did not change it ever since then. We are all required, all third parties, to provide this one-page disclosure. So you have the property address, and is it in a flood zone? Is it in a potential flood zone if a dam breaks? Is it in a very high fire severity zone, which obviously right now is huge in our state? Or are you in a wildlife area that might be, in a forest fire risk area, which clearly we've seen a lot of that happening lately. Earthquake faults, seismic activity are broken down separately. And notice that landslides and liquefaction, even though they're under seismic activity, you don't need to have one or the other to occur. That's why they're separate. Because a landslide can be nothing more than too much water from the rain. 3 days of rain in the Hollywood Hills, the dirt is solid, hard, and it has no way to absorb more than a certain amount of liquid. And now you create a landslide, and that happens just from too much water, not from any earth movement, not from any seismic activity. So that's why those are separate. We also have to include under this area, map is not yet released by the state, because in the open areas left in California where you can build, there may not be a map that relates to that. So that's why that's on there. This is the signature of the seller and the signature of the agent representing the seller, which is why they're together, the listing agent. Right below this is the transferor, which is a seller, transferee, which is the buyer. And by the way, we got permission from CAR to add buyer seller to our report, because a lot of agents, even seasoned agents, they kind of forget sometimes which side they're on. I know it sounds funny, but they do. So we want to help you by making sure everything is really clear, and that the transferor and their agent acknowledge they've exercised good faith in the acknowledgement of a third-party provider. That's us. Civil Code 1103.7 requires the NHD statement to be based upon the third-party provider and this civil code. So that's why the transferee or the buyer needs to read this before they sign it, because right above the buyer's signature, it says, transferee also acknowledges they've read, received, and understand all of these documents, all these additional disclosures, determinations, legal information like Mello-Roos, special assessments, taxes, lead-based paint, etc. And that's why you need a complete, accurate report so the buyer can review it and then sign it. This is why I always recommend buyer's agents, please do not have escrow. Send your client, the buyer, this report. It's a sensitive, time-sensitive 3 days from the day they receive it to either move forward on the transaction or pull out of it. And it's called material fact. Material fact is what affects the desirability and the value of the house. And that's why this report was created. So if they don't read it before signing it and they sign it, it's like too late. Once it's signed, you can't go back and say, oh, I should have read that, or I didn't realize I was in this zone. So let me give you an example. Buyer's agents. Your client wants a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. They can't afford it. They find a 3-1. The 3-1, is it going to give them the opportunity to build the extra bathroom, bedroom, pool, whatever they want to build. That's why these reports are so important. Can you build? Are you in a liquefaction, landslide, seismic activity zone, something that might prevent it? Are you the expert? No. So you might need a geologist, a soil specialist to come out. If you notice that your client, the buyer, is in any of these zones under the yes box, that's the purpose of the summary page, then just check the page, read about it, remind your client, I know you want to build the bathroom, I don't know if you can, you might need a specialist. Any questions on that? I also want to,
No, none of that. Is a couple general questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to the earthquake. Is there a difference between this a seismic report and earthquake report, or is that the same?
Well, when we look at this, good question.
Oh, Mindy, I just thought of something.
Yeah.
Maybe on your laptop, could you, since you have your mic on your headpiece, maybe
Right.
you could mute the one on the laptop. Maybe
Okay.
that's the two.
I'm not going to mute.
Or turn it down.
That's what I'm thinking. Is this better? Is this better?
Might be better. I can't tell till you start talking.
Okay, I'll keep talking and tell me if it's better.
Okay.
That was a really good question, because notice it says here, earthquake fault zone is not the same as a seismic hazard zone. And keep in mind, you know, I'm not a geologist, I'm an engineer, but you know how when you have an earthquake and you see the doctor come on and talk about the earthquake faults, we have the San Andreas fault, that's a fault zone. Whereas a seismic activity zone is more like a zone under landslide and liquefaction. So that is a good question. They're separate. And that's why they're separate on here.
Okay.
Okay.
And another question was, is the seller always the one that orders this report?
Yes. It is the seller's responsibility to give this report to the buyer. If the seller has an agent, that's called the listing agent, then they are required when they represent their client to provide it. Another good question. And that's why it's always important to get it when you get the listing. Don't wait for escrow to open. When escrow opens, call us, email us, just let us know who has it so we can send them the report as well. And that way all the monies are transferred at the end. And that leads me to something I just thought of that's always good. Let's pretend, Kim, that you're the listing agent and that you don't know any better. And you just think all these reports are the same, you know, why would they be any different? And so you go online and you get a report for $50 because your client wants to spend the least amount they can. John, the buyer's agent, wrote MyNHD in his contract on the RPA, on the zip forms. And that's $74.95. So there's a $25 difference, right? A lot of people say to me, well, what's going to happen? When the listing agent, you go to give the buyer's agent that report, and the buyer's agent says, hey, I wrote in the contract, I want my NHD. So sorry, I'm not going to accept the one you want to give me. Everything is negotiable in real estate. So you say, well, I don't want to pay more than $50. My client, the seller, who normally pays for this, it's not a law, but they usually pay. If the seller doesn't pay, then usually the seller's agent pays, listing agent. If the listing agent says none of us are paying, then it's usually the buyer's agent. But generally it's the seller. So let's say they say, I'm not paying more than $50. No problem. John, the buyer's agent, will pay that additional $25 to make sure his client has the complete, accurate report he asked for in the contract. So that's why at the end, escrow exchanges all the money. And I also like to point out, nowhere on this statutory form from CAR is there a spot for the buyer's agent to sign it, because they don't have to by law. So just like to point that out. On our summary sheet, we have this URL code, and it's because we have added this phenomenal technology when Google Maps are perfect, and they have a Google map for almost every APN number. We have attached it to our report so that every single part of this disclosure that has a map can be clicked on and see exactly where does it go and what does it do. So let me give you an example. It's really cool. I love, this is technology really at its best, because a lot of companies will put maps in their reports, and if they're not to scale, they create liability by saying, well, how far is that from the property? And if it's not to scale, when agents start chatting about it, it actually adds liability to you. So let's take, are you in an area of a potential flood zone in case the dam breaks? Yes. So most companies say yes or no. MyNHD does it a little different. We give you a map by clicking on the blue link, and we tell you the name of the dam that would be affecting that property if it broke. So let's check it out. This is the map of that exact property right here, and then how far out it goes if the dam breaks. So you can see, you know, if it goes out, let's say 1/4 of a mile or more, it could affect quite a few properties. And what can you do about that? Well, knowledge is power, right? Do you need to get insurance that will include that as well? This is why it's important to make sure you can get insurance on your properties. Fire insurance, it's hard to get, has to go usually through the California FAIR plan, and it's always more money. But if you want to live in a beautiful environment, like in Malibu or Hollywood Hills, areas that are very high fire, you're going to pay for it, unfortunately. And the risk was higher, of course, like we've been seeing. Seismic activity, are you in a landslide zone or liquefaction? Then we give you the map. So all these blue links are for the agent to guide their buyer so they can click on them and gather all the information they'd like about the house they want to buy. So let's look at the FAA approved lending facility. That's who decides it, FAA. And here's the map. How close are you to LAX? So you can see a 2-mile radius of all these homes that are going to be affected by the landing facility of LAX. In addition to that, the blue link that goes to that particular disclosure is really cool, because in addition to the map, it'll tell you FAA.gov/airport/environmental/airport noise. So when you click on that blue link, it gives you a lot of extra information about what's going on close to that particular airport. But then look at this. Instead of just saying yes or no, you're within 2 miles, MyNHD gives you the link, the map, how far is it from the property, is it a public, is it a private airport, and the name. So people go, well, what's the Ritz-Carlton Hotel doing there? Why is that Hughes corporate building doing there? That's because they have heliports. So not all locations are just airports. They're hospitals and, you know, hotels and corporate buildings that are high-rise. You know, Westwood has them, you know, in a variety of buildings, I'm sure. So you need to disclose this for all of these reasons. Let's look at another thing that's very interesting. Did you know?
Mindy, is there a map for every hazard, if it's applicable?
Every single, yes, we give you the map for every single map that's available. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And link as well. That's why our report is so complete. And also keep in mind, like a lot of people say, oh, our report is 45 pages. Well, if you only do one link and disclosure per page, then yeah, we have about 40 disclosures too per average report, but we like to save, used to be paper, now everything is digital, thank goodness. But notice we'll put 4 or 5 disclosures per page. So I like to point out that the state rock of California is called serpentine. And did you know that serpentine is an ultramafic rock and it contains asbestos? So if you leave it alone, it's perfectly fine. But if you remove it off the property, it lets off naturally occurring asbestos, which is not good. So what do you have to do? Disclose it. What if you want to build on your property? Maybe you can't. Where is it on the property? So that's why someone would need to come out and check it out, because we only can disclose it's there. No one goes to the property to write the reports. But the EPA website right here is helpful. And just know that, you know, This is in your driveways, unpaved roads, coastal ranges, mountains, foothills. It's not like you can control it, so you have to disclose where it is. The other thing that we take care of in the state of California is our endangered species, plants and animals. So the critical habitats are protected by the Endangered Species Act. There are a lot of them everywhere, like the milk thistle plant in Santa Monica, the three-legged frog in Santa Barbara, the kangaroo rat out in Riverside. I mean, there's stuff everywhere that's a critical habitat. So again, what if you want to build? If it's on your property, you cannot disrupt its house. So here's an example of what happened. A builder purchased this beautiful land. It was overlooking the ocean, great views, beautiful homes that he wanted to build, very unique. And when he drained the 2 baby ponds so that he could start to, prepare the land, he was fined $2 million. This was about 12, 13 years ago, just above Santa Barbara. When he was fined $2 million, it came with the order that you'll never build, because that was a critical habitat for the three-legged frog. So this is why it's in the report. The report has all these additional disclosures from people dying or suing. I hate to say it. And don't forget, we live in the most litigious state there is. Yes, we beat New York. California, and I used to say this coming from the East Coast, look at all the states we have and then look at California. So although you could break it down, a lot of people think there's 3 parts of California, right? Central, Northern, Southern California. Clearly, we have one of the most litigious states, because this is last year's statistic. I haven't heard one for this year yet. 43% of the lawsuits that came from the real estate industry were from California. So think of it, out of the whole country, 43% of them came from California, almost half. That should make you a little nervous, and to always just do the right thing. So having accuracy and longevity and reliability of a report is huge. We give you things like methane gas links, plus the map for LA, Orange County, or wherever you are in the state, if it pertains to the property. Here's a link for the gas and hazardous liquid transmission pipelines, and that's because the National Piping Mapping System, they put pipelines underneath the ground and map them, and so some of them have blown up, and that's why those are in there now. Explanations of flood, fire, earthquake, and seismic activity to help you and your clients understand a little better what it is, because you don't need to be the expert. We are. We always like to do a separate page on mellow roofs, because mellow roofs comes usually with new developments like Playa Vista. So when you're creating that new development, you're going to need a lot of additional things like roads, schools, the sewage and storm drains, public services like libraries, big ticket items. So this is where the community who owns property helps pay for it. This is going to be $24.76 up to $38.78 a year, and notice it lasts for 30 years. So let's say your client's on a fixed income or not, whatever. Point out when you notice how much it could be. I've heard these could go as much as $10,000 a year in Playa Vista, depending on the price of the property. So it's nothing to kind of, forget to look at. Whereas the 1915 Bond Act in LA is usually very inexpensive. This property didn't have it, but if it did, it's usually between 15 and no more than 50 bucks, 100 bucks at the most a year. And they usually only last a couple of years, because these are the lightweight ticket items in the neighborhood that are more like street lights and things that are not as expensive. Recreation areas, parks, things like that. Not to get excited about taxes, but don't you want to know where your money goes? I know I do. Every year it's a lot, and I like to see, oh wow, even if it's only $735 for flood control, itemized to the penny, so that the new buyer knows how much they're paying and all their taxes. And then what we give you here is a tax calculator. So let's say you're selling the property now in December. You go down here to the month you're selling the property, you prorate the percentage with the price of the house. And then when you do the calculations, you get, voila, the taxes, which is really cool. A lot of people want to know what the new taxes will be. I think you can get it from title as well, but it's nice that you can, as the agent, find out on your own and give it to your client. The supplemental tax bill, what does it mean? What is a transfer fee? Who pays it? We have a lot of this additional information to help you, help your client. So you'll notice all of these extra links. And California City Finance right here is who created our tax sheet. And we use them because they're the best in the state. So why not use them? We're the best in NHD, they're the best at taxes. So we make sure you have the most accurate information all the way around. And we want to know, if you want to know who pays the transfer fee or if there are exemptions, we just give you a lot of help to guide you. Any questions? Okay.
Mindy, one question is, since hazards maybe change, do you ever see that a report that specified certain hazards at the time that it was written, it could change throughout that escrow process? Like you were talking about the animals, I think that's what they're referring to, or the species. Maybe a little family didn't live there at the time, but then later they moved in or something.
It has to come from the state. So, good question. Let's deviate for a second, because I was going to get to this, but this is a perfect segue. So, a lot of people think whether it's, this endangered species moved into my backyard, it's sitting inside the, underneath part of my roof or whatever, right? We had fires 3 months ago. Is that going to be in the report? Let me make you guys a little nervous. You ready? The Paradise Fire might not even be in the report yet, from 2 years ago. The state of California, the county that the fire is in, they need to update their maps in order for us to then update our information. So this is why the local map is huge. A fire happening that's been finished for this year, it could take years to show up. So when you get the TDS, transfer disclosure statement, that's what comes from the homeowner. And that's why they're not allowed to lie, and they have to say everything wrong with their property. Whatever that is. They were in a fire, their house didn't catch on fire, but their neighborhood did, or next door. That's where you get a lot of this updated, elevated information. Does that make sense? Because people think it's going to be immediate, and it's just not how the government system works. So Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, they may update that map more frequently, but still it's not like it's every year or every other year. For example, FEMA redid the whole state of California about 10 years ago. And it had been almost 20 years since they had reassessed flood zones. So if you think of it like that, it's kind of scary. So no, it's probably not going to change during the process of the transaction. But let me also point out the report is good for a whole year from the time it's written. If, let's say, I go into a transaction, you're my buyer, Kim, and it falls out of escrow, and I have another buyer 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, I can always ask MyNHD to update the report until it's sold, or it's gone to another escrow, update it for free. But that's a really good question. I wish I could say it was updated more frequently, but unfortunately it's not. So
that's interesting.
I know it is. And that's why a lot of people don't realize this is not, when I say that it's not regulated, but mandatory, that's because they think when it's mandatory, it's regulated. And so a lot of people say, well, why isn't it regulated? I don't know. We don't know. I do know that it is an opportunity, and not to upset any attorneys, but you know, they look for business like agents do, right? And so they get those lists for free of agents that have sold homes, and they can call the new buyer. Hi, I noticed, Kim, that you just bought a new home. Congratulations. I just have a question for you. Did you have a good experience with your real estate agent? Yes or no? And what if you go, well, you know, Mindy was good, but she wasn't really attentive at the end and escrow and didn't answer my questions or whatever. So they're looking for, you know, do you need any help? If you have any problems, you need to get out for any reason, you know, I'm here. So this doesn't have a regulation on it. There might be a little loophole. You know, I don't know. But it's only been since 1998 that it's been mandatory, and we're the only state in the whole country that requires it. And there's a lot of weather going on everywhere, every day. So it's very interesting. So good questions. Megan's Law is the sex offender database. Do not ever, any agent, click on this. If your client has children, guide them. If they have questions, guide them to the email address or, you know, the web locator address here. But please don't look at it with them or whatever. And also, I like to point out there's 3 different kinds of sex offenders. Everybody thinks they're all kind of jumbled into one. When the database comes up, there's 3 different color codes. The first one at the top, of course, is what most people think of, which is an adult having sex with a child. But the second one could be an adult having sex with a minor, like John is my boyfriend, he's 18, I am 17. I agree to have sex with him, but when my daddy finds out, he raped me. And now he is forever a rapist on that database. The other way is if your privates are hanging out. So let's say you're a 18-year-old kid that went to college and, you know, drank too much your first Friday night away from home, and you and your friends peed your name on the wall. You know, my brother did that stupidly like 40 years ago, right? But now that would be called sex offense because your privates are hanging out. So those 3 different kinds are color coded. And I've been told from a variety of different brokers, and I thought this was a great way to help a client if they get really scared that the new house they want to buy has so many sex offenders everywhere. And my 3 little girls, oh my God. So here's a good one. Look at the database where you live now and see how many there are around you. Just saying, check it out. And then put in a zip code or 2 of where you'd love to live, the best neighborhood ever, and see where they all are. And the reason I say that is, unfortunately, they're everywhere. So just, those are a couple of suggestions that might alleviate the pressure that, oh my gosh, they're pretty much everywhere. If you are selling a home that's older, or you are buying, representing the client who's going to buy a home that's older, keep this in mind, that the minimum energy conservation standard in California went up to 14. So what does that mean? It means that the Department of Energy created in 1992 equipment that was going to have a SEER rating of 10. SEER rating is right here, Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. And from this time, 1992 to 2006, it was at number 10. Then they raised it to 13. Then in 2015, they raised it to 14, giving you more energy efficient products. Here's the little glitch. When your air heating unit dies and you upgrade it to a 14 SEER, is your ductwork compatible? Doubtful. What if the SEER was only 10 or 13 at that time? It must now be raised to be compatible. I've heard prices like $50,000, $75,000 to redo a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 to 2,000 square foot home. So if the home is being inspected, ask how long the life the air conditioner heating unit has. If it's on its last leg, then ask what's the amount it would cost for ductwork to be redone to be compatible with this particular unit. And that way, if it's an additional $75,000, maybe you can negotiate something if it's on its last leg. Maybe not, but at least it's worth trying. And the reason this is in the report is somebody sued after this law was created, and their air conditioner died a week after they moved in. So gotta be on your game, people. This is the last time they updated the energy standards, 2013. Are there any tax credits? Mold is a nasty 4-letter word. Don't ever use it. You're not a mold expert. It's been around for about 2 billion years. So why did it become a lawsuit situation? Because it could. So to avoid that is you do not discuss what it is. If you think it is or you smell something, you just describe what you see, and then you call a mold remediator. And then here's a link if you need that. A lot of homes, it can be fixed, so you shouldn't have to lose a deal over it. Unfortunately, there are so many meth labs in the state, we have to disclose that. Abandoned wells, oil wells, we talked about the state rock, radon gas, and wood burning heaters are potentially dangerous, so you have to disclose them because of the Clean Air Act. And before I go into environmental for a moment, are there any questions?
No, I don't see any right now.
Okay, cool. Thank you. So on environmental, we have the same URL code. When you click on all the blue links, they all open up for all these different sites. So what is the environmental report? It's basically environmental contamination that's going to be surrounding this property. And it's all kinds of stuff that's interesting. Landfill, waste transfer stations, leaking underground storage tanks. Those are called LEST. These all have little abbreviations. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act, the Toxic Release Inventory, oil wells, gas wells, noise, air, electrical, light pollution, all kinds of good stuff. How far is it from the property? So I love it when people get in, they call and they go, is it bad? This is checked yes. How do you answer that, agents? It is a natural hazard disclosure report. Does that mean you get all weighted out over it? No, it means your client should open all of these blue links and see what they mean and how they feel about them. And the reason I say it is that everyone has a different comfort zone. We all have, things that make us feel okay or things that make us feel uneasy. So perhaps somebody who likes living on the Hollywood Hills with the stilts on the edge of their balcony deck, it's great. Somebody else may not like that. So when your client reviews this report, have them click on all the links, make notes of anything that makes them uncomfortable. They call you, you call me, our 800 number. If there's more reports or maps we can provide, we will. We have a geologist if needed, and we even have a real estate attorney to speak to the client if needed. But quite frankly, it usually doesn't get that far. These are things that you can't fix or change. It is what it is on the property. The client's okay with it or they're not. And these things are, pretty much everywhere, right? Gas stations, cleaners, things that have toxic chemicals related to them. So disclosure is what you have to do. So, I don't know what all these compounds and things are because I'm not an engineer. Again, click on the blue link, gather some information, see, are they okay with it? You don't need to point out, oh, look at this, are you okay with it? No, just give it to them and ask them to review it and click on all the blue links. And what's cool is that MyNHD is so detailed, we give you information of where it is, the project, what kind of project, and how far is it from the property or whatever the status is. It's inactive, but it needs evaluation. What does that mean? I don't know. We have to click on the link. I don't know. I get a lot of questions that I don't see every report that comes through. So, radiation, we click on the link. What else does this mean? So I find it interesting that spills, leaks, investigations, and cleanups, there's a whole list of things right here. Marina Shopping Center, Westway Development, Playa Vista property, you know, a variety of things. A lot of shopping center stuff. Oil wells. And again, all the blue links are good. Natural pipelines, gas pipelines. Because 22 people died in Northern California from a natural gas pipeline 12 years ago, 10 years ago. It's been in the report ever since. These are all the definitions, all little links attached to all of them, which is good. And now our terms and conditions, and we spell out in writing, oops, at the very end, and this is a must. Whoever you use for NHD, if it's not us, make sure there's insurance. They have to have it in writing, not just talk about it. So here we go. We identify everybody, brokers, agents, TCs, escrow, and the seller ordering this report. Everybody. And it's per Civil Code 1102. And then here at the end is the disclosure statement, which we provide in all the reports. Each report that we send comes with the link of the earthquake booklet, the link of the invoice, the link of the summary page, and the link of the actual report itself. So it's really, really easy. So I hope that helps. Are there any questions?
One question is there a consequence, or what would happen if someone fails to order this report?
You can't close the transaction without it.
Okay.
You're not allowed by law. And here's a good one. Let's say that I'm looking through my file tonight because I'm closing tomorrow. And I go, oh my God, I screwed up. I forgot to give the NHD report to the buyer's agent, the buyer. Somehow the buyer's agent wasn't on their game either. I know it sounds crazy, but this has happened. It's happened more than once. I'll be doing this 16 years in January. Oh, wow, 16 years in January. And I've gotten calls many times. Oh, I'm closing tomorrow or in 2 days. Can you get it to me like right away? Oh yeah, we can get it to you. But remember I said the client buyer has 3 days. What if you can say, no, I need to close tomorrow because I already have the mover lined up. I got to get out of the apartment. I'm moving into the house. I'm cool. I can look it over right now and sign it. I'm good. And I say, well, wait a minute. Let's have escrow write an addendum that you've waived your 3 days. Okay. So escrow writes an addendum. You sign it and waive your 3 days. You move in. Everything's good. God forbid, crisis like now. You lose your job. You can't stay in your house. You got to get out. One of the things noticed, oh, by the way, attorney discovered that you never got your 3 days. And even though the addendum was signed that you waived it, what's the first thing that they can do is go back to the agent. How come you didn't give your client 3 days? She waived it because she needed to move. But what happened to Civil Code 1103.7? I heard people create stuff from things that simple. Let's see what we can dig and find. So I always kind of point that out because, you know, most of the time you're probably fine. But what about that time that you're not? Or what about that time when, you know, you heard that you shouldn't really say anything, so you don't? Like, is it okay if I just tell you this, agent? But do you have to tell everybody? You don't have to, right? Some agents aren't smart and they go, okay, I won't tell anybody. And they don't disclose it because they're so afraid they maybe won't sell the property or whatever the problem was. And it catches up with them later that it wasn't disclosed. And this is why lawsuits happen. But then there are frivolous lawsuits for nothing, just because they can, and they want to try to get something for nothing, and you have insurance, and I want some. And it may go nowhere, but it made your life miserable. So there are a lot of scenarios, but the best one is protect yourself with the risk management and just do the right thing. And if you see that you didn't order it in time, give your client that 3 days. Don't waive it because it's a law. And even if you don't like the law, you still have to abide by the law. So I'm all for staying out of court. And what do you need to do?
That's great advice.
Because you know, it's funny. I would hear, especially KW, they're phenomenal on training, right? So you hear the broker get on and all these agents, especially in the middle or beginning of COVID. Well, I don't really want to do it that way. Is it okay if I do it like this? Or, they tried like negotiating how they could do the open house or do it this way. And the answer was no, no, and no. Be safe, be smart, and do it the right way. And then you don't have to deal with the crap that comes back later. Because doesn't real estate have enough things that could go sideways that you're not in control over? Why do you want to add stuff to it? I've never understood that. So to me, be on your game, be smart, get it early, and protect yourself. It's really that simple, and it's cheap. It's not like it's expensive. So why not just do the right thing? So I hope that helps. If you ever have questions, our 800 number right here, 800-814-2922 is on the bottom. If you want to call me, 424-385-1179 or Mindy at MyNHD.com. So thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you, Mindy. I will put your email address in the comments. And thank you again for all that valuable information.
Oh, you're welcome. And could you hear me better at the end when I lowered my volume? Did it help?
Yeah, it is a little better. It is a little better.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, good.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Talk to you soon. Thank you.
Good night. Bye-bye.